MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Last week on My Fantasy Podcast.
Brandon, I'm pretty sure, in your own home, you probably take a little crumpled up piece of paper and throw it into your garbage. And when you throw it, instead of saying Kobe, you say, I'm a big baller. And because you say that, it probably goes in. And, I think it's going to start to catch on a little bit more than it does once he gets that $500 price point down.
Man, I'm still rocking them 1 cent little pennies, dog. You gotta recognize Memphis.
I will say I made those prediction before game 1. I know Dan wasn't feeling too well. So by the time it came out, it kind of seemed a little odd that I picked them in 6.
Odd? Yeah, I got more words for it. But
but that was before the whole Kawhi injury.
If I'm the Boston Celtics, I draft Josh Jackson from Kansas. You do not trade your franchise player for a rookie. You're not going to get better that way. You have to add a potential franchise player to your team to get better. That's a fair point. They have screwed up the running back position for so long in Philadelphia that you're right. You're right. I'm wrong.
Thank you. Thank you. But it feels good for you to admit that. I feel better now.
It finally just had to click to me. What's up, podcast peeps? Long time no see. Your boys are back. After about a 2-week vacation, we are back. Schedule conflicts, technical difficulties have kept us away from you, but we are back. And today, it's just myself and Dan Shaw, Brandon Reed, here with you, and Dan Shaw. Again, scheduling conflicts is going to make this a 2-man show today, but we can handle it, right, Dan?
You know it. I think it brings out the best in our future debates that we're about to have. We get to go right back and forth with each other, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we got something special for you that we've been debating all week anyway. A fierce debate here, because I think if you listened and watched the podcast before, I guess my favorite sport is basketball. Big NBA fan. Dan's definitely a baseball guy, so we got a debate for you coming up. We're gonna rank the top 3 sports in America, and our opinions will vary quite a bit. And the way we see sports trending in America. But big show today. Thanks for joining us. My Fantasy Podcast. We're going to talk about news in the NFL and free agent signings, who possibly could make some fantasy noise on a new team. So that's what you come here for, fantasy talk. And we're going to give you a little bit of that. Some free agents that you may not have known sign with new teams in the NFL. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that big game 3 from last night that apparently no one but me is watching. I guess it's just me. I'm the only one in the world watching NBA anymore. But game 3 went down last night. We're going to talk about that and recap that and talk about the future of the NBA and what does this mean that the Golden State Warriors are apparently going to sweep the NBA Finals and are just the dominant team now. So we're also going to do that and talk about, like I said, we're going to rank the top 3 sports in America right now, give our opinions on that. So don't miss that. It's going to be a hot debate. We've got a plethora of notes for each side there. I can guarantee you that. So we're also going to talk about the NBA a little bit more and answer your mailbag questions because we received a bunch, and these are really great questions this week submitted by you guys that kind of break down the futures. It kind of leads into our NBA talk about, is this good for basketball, what the Warriors are doing now, and the future of the Warriors and the future of the NBA, and of course the NBA draft. We're going to start getting you ready for our live draft show on June 22nd. Do not miss it. It's going to be hot. The link is already up there on YouTube, so you can find that and check that out and bookmark and save that and join us Thursday night, June 22nd for the draft. But also today, you kept asking for more baseball talk, so we're going to give it to you. Fantasy baseball mailbag questions coming from you, so appreciate that. Damn, my team is taking a little bit of a slide. This baseball is not quite as easy. I mean, I've ran into the injury bug. I've got a plethora of guys on the 10-day DL. It's hard to keep up with, and if you get a few injuries here and there, don't keep up with it. And here's something else, Dan. Before we get into the baseball side, this questions, which will come later in the show, but I got an update yesterday, and I was very upset with ESPN because they sent me an update that one of my pitchers, I think Kyle Freeland, was going to be starting, but was not in the starting lineup. So I checked it immediately. Too late, already locked. He got 21 points. I should have 21 more points on the board. What's up with ESPN? That kind of pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stinks, but here's the thing. Can you check your lineup a little bit earlier in the day?
If I didn't think he was going to start, I mean, I'm going to sit him there until I think he's going to start. I need that notification. Would you got underground sites I should be going to?
MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
You weren't reporting on Kyle Freeland, Dan.
I mean, that one kind of bites you. That you've been bit a lot. I'll give you a mention there with Starling Marte. I mean, who would have thought he was going to get popped for PEDs? So yeah, you've taken a hit. But here's the thing: if you listen to my answers on these mailbag questions, you might be able to find some hidden gems. So it's hard. It's a long season, so you gotta ride it out. There's always going to be that one stretch where it's going to be rougher than the rest.
Yep, 6-3 right now. I guess technically I'm still in second place or second place, right behind yourself. But yeah, I've hit a slump here, and I'm not looking so good right now. So we'll see what happens. But it's a tough game. It's a long season, and man, the injury bug will get you. And I guess, is this a common theme though, Dan? Is there just this many little nitpicking injuries in baseball typically every year of guys? I would say most fans probably keep up with one team, their team, and don't really watch the entire league unless they're just baseball fanatics. So is this a common thing? Or are guys getting these little nitpicking injuries? It's a 162-game season, so I guess so, all throughout the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a long year, so constantly guys go on and off DL occasionally throughout the year. I think this year is a little bit strange where a lot of big stars have gone on the DL. Just guys like Madison Bumgarner, and there's been a lot. I mean, Dallas Keuchel is going on the DL for the second time, the Astro star, so that hurts my fantasy team. But yeah, you see it, and you got to be able to deal with it. And that's what I like about fantasy baseball. Do you hang on to the guys, or are they going to be worth it? If you keep them for a couple weeks on your bench, with them not contributing, so kind of adds a little bit of intrigue to what fantasy baseball offers instead of football, a 16-game season. If a guy's out 4 or 5 weeks, you don't have that IR spot, you're probably going to drop him.
Well, I think NFL is a little bit easier to keep up with, and this is probably why I'm more familiar and know more about the NFL, because honestly, it's just a lot easier sport to watch and keep up with. All the games are played on Sunday. You got, the week for the news. I think to me, it's just easier to keep up with. Baseball is all over the place. Teams will play two different franchises and be in two different cities within a matter of 5 or 6 days. So if you don't keep up with it for 3 or 4 days, you're lost. You really can be lost. Who's the guy that went 5 for 5, hit 4 home runs the other night, Dan? I forgot his name.
Scooter Gennett. Scooter.
Yeah. It's not his real name. His real name, I think, is Ryan. But did you hear how he got the name Scooter?
I believe I did, but it does misplace me right now. Didn't he pick it, or or something like that.
Pretty much at the age of 5, he pretty much picked his name as Scooter. So 5 years old, not wearing his seatbelt. His mom kept asking him to wear a seatbelt, threatening, you're going to get in trouble. The police will arrest you if you don't wear your seatbelt. So she drove him to the police station one day and asked one of the cops, hey, kind of threaten my boy Ryan here, and tell him, you'll get in big trouble if you don't wear your seatbelt. So the police officer approached little young Ryan and asked him, hey, what's your name? And he said Scooter. He gave an alias. He gave an alias because he thought he's going to get in trouble. So I didn't give him my real name. This dude's going to arrest me. So Scooter. And he just kept calling himself Scooter. So his parents were finally forced to call him Scooter. But all that to be said, to lead me back to, was he available in our free? Did someone pick him up? Was he the type of player that was drafted, or was he picked up as a free agent, or what?
Yeah, I mean, he was designated for assignment by the Brewers to start the year, which basically means we're just going to let you go. We don't want you, either go to the minor leagues or go somewhere else. And, Cincinnati picked him up, and he hasn't had a great year. I think on the season he had 3 home runs, so he already eclipsed, whatever he had in that game. So, yeah, he probably is available, and he probably should stay available. It was a freak fluke. Props to him to be able to get that locked in at the plate one night, but I wouldn't pick him up in fantasy.
So do you know if anyone in our league actually had him and was starting him that night?
I doubt it. It's very doubtful. He's not even an everyday player. So if he was picked up and owned and started, props to that owner. But in our 12-man league, I don't think anybody would have had him.
Do you know roughly how many fantasy points that would have been with? Because he had he 5 for 5, 4 home runs, and 10 RBIs.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably talking 40 to 50 in our league, easy. I mean, it's an impressive fantasy feat. If you had him in daily fantasy, I mean, you're basically guaranteed a top 10 finish automatically by just his performance.
Oh yeah, because his salary was probably what, $2,200 or something like that.
Yeah,
it had to be a bargain player. So, but anyway, that's kind of what's happening in the world of the MLB. So a lot to get into today. It's just me and Dan, so we may have a little bit of a shorter show because we can only go at each other for so long, but we're going to do our best, but a lot to get into. So let's go ahead and start the news whip around. In today's news whip around, I just kind of wanted to talk about NFL. We've been gone for right at 3 weeks, I think, from the podcast. So sorry we missed you guys, and we're back, and we're going to catch you up on the world of the NFL and free agent signings and what exactly has happened since we've been gone. A few of the names that, and I'm sure Dan has his own little news and notes too, but just a few of the names that I saw that I found interesting that could be or could have some sort of relevant fantasy value going into next season are guys that signed with new teams, and that's Christine Michael. He went, a former Seahawk running back, has gone to the Indianapolis Colts. Victor Cruz signed with Chicago, and Matt Asiata went from Minnesota to Detroit. So let's face it, no matter what you think about these guys, Indianapolis needs more help in the running game, and so does Detroit. And then, of course, Chicago needs all kinds of help that they can get. So these 3 guys, Dan, do you think they can make an impact on their new team and help them win games and provide an impact in fantasy football next year?
I mean, I only like one of the guys on the list, and it's a tempered and that's Matt Asiata. Just looking at the Lions' backfield, I mean, you got Amir Abdullah, who's supposedly penciled in as the starter, Theo Riddick, and then Zach Center, Dwayne Washington, who you can kind of just throw to the side. But, they don't have that workhorse type goal line back, which I think Asiata will kind of fit in that scheme. And I actually looked it up on the Lions site. They have him listed as a fullback, which is kind of interesting because he is obviously more of the tailback type running back, but he has that size. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him. The other guys that you mentioned, Christine Michael, I mean, he's bounced around from so many teams for a reason. I don't think you're gonna see him really latch on anywhere. His last stop in Green Bay, you would have thought that their pressing need at running back, he would at least be able to stick. And I know they drafted Jamal Williams in the draft, but they really have nobody else. So it was surprising to see them let go of him. And then he just bounces around. So the Colts, they have Frank Gore. They have Josh Ferguson, who I liked last year, but they drafted a guy, Marlon Mack, out of USF, who I was pretty high on in the draft. So I expect him to actually probably end up as their featured back at the end of the year. And then, just looking at Victor Cruz, the Bears have, they don't have any big name receivers. I mean, you look at Kevin White, who's always injured. Cam Meredith had some breakout games last year, but they have a lot of receivers on their roster, like Marcus Wheaton, your boy Kendall Wright. I know Brandon's a huge fan of Mr. Wright. And,
I was not sad to see him go, actually.
and like Ruben Randall. So they have a lot of guys that aren't very impressive, but is Victor Cruz coming off of how many injuries, not very productive last season with the Giants.
He had moments though. He had at least one or two, maybe 2 touchdown games.
Yeah, I think one, maybe even a 3 touchdown game, but he just disappeared. He wasn't on part of their offense. So you wonder Victor Cruz says it was the coaching staff that knew they weren't going to re-sign him. And
well, let's also be honest about that, though, Dan. The whole New York Giants had issues last year. I know you were afraid of them being in the same division with your Dallas Cowboys, but I think Ben McAdoo had that offense all screwed up, and even Odell Beckham disappeared until some key moments in certain games. They had no run game, and Eli Manning's numbers, as you predicted profoundly that he would be the #1 fantasy quarterback by season's end, he was nowhere near that. I think I ended up dropping him.
Yeah, no, I mean, they definitely disappointed last season. Their offense had moments, but, it was only flashes. So, I hope he can, recover and get back to his salsa dancing ways. But then again, you have Mike Glennon or Mitchell Trubisky throwing him the ball. So, how effective can he be? I don't think he's going to be their #1 or 2 or probably 3. So he's fighting for that 4 or 5 spot, I would think.
When a lot of the guys you mentioned, Kevin White, Ruben Randall, are we sure any of these guys are going to stay healthy? I mean, they got a lot of sub-tier guys that can't stay healthy, that none of these guys may be even on starting or even playing by season's end.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So it's all a depth signing. So I like the signing by the Bears because I think they probably know all the injuries that their receiving core is going to take throughout, training camp into the regular season. So I don't hate the move, but if they all do stay healthy, which I guess could happen, then I think Victor Cruz might be in trouble for that roster spot.
So also some news that we saw today or yesterday, we were actually talking about it, is Eric Decker is probably going to be on the move. Some noise about him going to the Tennessee Titans, but I guess I got a two kind of parter for you here, Dan, that I want your take on. Number one, would you be excited about that if you were the Titans or anyone else, because they were trying to trade Eric Decker, and if not, they're probably going to outright release him. So they pretty much give all their leverage up by pretty much admitting that. And then part two is, what the hell are the Jets doing? They're clearly trying to tank and get the #1 pick, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Jets are definitely tanking. I don't hate the idea. I kind of like it. Similar to what the Browns did now. I mean, the Browns recouped all those draft picks, via trade, so they had a lot of picks, and the Jets don't necessarily have that. But you need a franchise quarterback, and next year's quarterback class is loaded. Whether you're talking about Sam Darnold, Josh Allen out of Wyoming, who I really like, just to name two, right off the bat, can be #1 quarterback. Franchise leading type picks with that #1 pick. So I understand what they're doing to a degree. And then when it comes to Decker, I mean, I like Decker as a player, but he's coming off some serious injuries that really do scare me. There was a point when he first got injured that they questioned whether he would play football again. And not only did I think it was a knee, but it was also a hip at the same time. So with his surgeries, the schedule of the surgery is different. So he had to get like his knee surgery, rehab that, and then go for a hip surgery. So if healthy, yes, I like it for the Titans. A reliable possession receiver for Mariota makes sense. But if he's not healthy, and don't trade for him, but sign him on a non-guaranteed deal if I were the Titans.
Right, just not worth it to give up anything for Eric Decker at this point, because he's kind of a throw-in player. Yeah, it'd be nice to have around, possibly third, fourth on your depth chart if it works out, but I wouldn't give up anything for him at this point. Kind of a side note today, I don't know, I didn't really research this, but I saw that Marcus Mariota had admitted that he had never had a drop of alcohol in his life. What do you think about that? He's pure, Dan.
Yeah, no, I heard about that in college. I saw him do a couple interviews, and then at that time he didn't either. Now I think he might have been under 21, but I mean, come on, especially if you're going to Oregon, what else is there to really do? So
Try on different Nike uniforms.
yeah, you could just wear your different shades of green. So props to him. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, sometimes you just need a cold beer to drink. So more power to you. Maybe that's why I'm not a franchise quarterback and all those damn beers.
Yeah, that's why you don't have his speed. I'll say that right now. That probably has something to do with why you don't have his speed, and you couldn't set that record-breaking like 83-yard touchdown by quarterback, something like that. But anyway, interesting side note. So anything else in the world of the NFL that I missed or that you've seen the last few days, the last 2 weeks since we've been on the podcast, anything worth noting?
No, I think the only thing that I can touch on is Colin Kaepernick again. I wrote a piece and put it on the site. Just a stat that I came across. I forgot who put it out there. I quoted him in the article, but basically 29-year-old quarterbacks who have thrown at least 150 passes in the NFL that season that they were 29. There's been 144 of them. All of them were that were free agents that next year. 143 of those 144 were signed, and Colin Kaepernick is the only one that hasn't. That was mind-blowing to me. You don't want to think blackballed, NFL owners would actually do that, but 143 of them were signed before him in a row, and Kaepernick's the one left out. And I'm sure there were some less talented quarterbacks out there than Colin Kaepernick. So kind of still surprised he's out there even as a backup. I know you don't want the media attention, but kind of shocking, and that stat kind of blew me away.
Well, and I really thought Pete Carroll in Seattle would have been the place for him, but apparently that didn't work out. They went with Austin Davis instead. Does that make any sense?
No, I think that kind of speaks to exactly what we're talking about. And no, I mean, it doesn't. Whether or not his excuse was Colin Kaepernick's a starter, and they already have a starter. Whether that could have meshed in the locker room, it might have hurt. But I think the Seattle players wanted him. They stood by him even during his kneeling in the national anthem. So I think it's only a matter of time, but it's still shocking that it's been this long.
Yeah, I can't quite understand it. I'm kind of coming around to the school of thought that maybe he's been working out for this team and he's not impressive and just doesn't have it because like we talked about before and like I brought up specifically, if you can get over what Riley Cooper did, which to me was 10 times worse. And I don't even want to get political about what Colin Kaepernick did. It's his prerogative. I don't want to live in a country where someone tells me you must stand for the national anthem. It's your prerogative. Okay, it's you. Honestly, I'm very respectful with the national anthem myself. I would like for others to be respectful, but I'm not looking over my shoulder while the national anthem is playing and look at this jerk right here. What a a-hole, not even standing, eating a hot dog, talking on his phone. I don't care. I can't live everyone else's life, and that's the problem. I wish more people felt the way I do and just mind your one life. But yeah, if you can get over what Riley Cooper did, Riley Cooper never even got fined, suspended, or even lost any money, and kept his job. And now Colin Kaepernick can't get a job. So is it that he's just working out for teams and people are seeing that? I'm sorry, Colin, I'd like to give you the chance, but Austin Davis is looking better in tryouts.
It's kind of hard to believe, but I mean, I'm not there, so I can't really say for sure. I would imagine he would, look somewhat impressive just with his arm alone. I mean, his arm strength. So we'll see what happens, but I hope it's only sooner than later than we see him back, at least on a roster.
Yep, no doubt. So before we get into NBA in Game 3 last night, I want to talk a little bit about hockey, just in case. Do we get any requests for hockey talk, Dan?
No, and even we have people from Buffalo that submit questions. In Buffalo, I consider kind of the hockey capital of at least the United States, and even then, we don't really cover it heavily on the site, and I think that's for a reason.
I say at all.
Yeah. I mean, we used to have a few writers that did, but that kind of, I mean, the hockey. Let's just say I don't think hockey's going to show up in our top 3 discussion later on.
Yeah, I don't know. We need Ryan on here from Thomas Take. I don't know if you saw his pecking order on Facebook today, but it was absolutely nuts. But anyway, the Stanley Cup is going on. The Stanley Cup Finals is going on. Nashville is they're tied up 2-2 with Pittsburgh, and I think it's game 5. Game 5 is tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, they're tied 2-2. So game 5 is tonight. Big game there. And it's been the huge talk in Nashville. So it's exciting. I've been watching a little bit of it, and I'll give you a little bit of fuel to your debate fire here in just a little bit when we start talking about NBA versus MLB and rank our top 3 American sports. But these NBA games have been so bad, I've actually been flipping over to watch a little bit of hockey every now and then, but really just because of the hysteria of Nashville. I think Nashville is 9-1 at home in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. It's been the biggest thing. And here's the thing about hockey. I don't know if you even attempt to watch it every once in a while, Dan, but I'll give it a try. And some moments are just really exciting. I'll be honest with you. It's back and forth when you got multiple shots being flung at the goal, and the goalie's having to bend and stretch and reach everywhere and try to save all these shots. And then sometimes it's just ice skating back and forth, and I can barely follow the puck. It's so tiny. I don't know how people do it really when it's being flung all over that ice. But it seems like there's moments when it's really good and exciting, and there's more moments when I don't know. It's long, and I don't know. It's just ice skating.
Yeah, I wish I can find those moments of that high intensity playing. I've flipped a few times, and literally it's just the person chucking the puck down ice, and them that's chasing it, and nobody actually ever gets possession, and then it's just passed in the midline and intercepted. So I don't get much enjoyment out of it. I used to try. I used to go to Sabres games all the time here in Buffalo, and it's just not worth it for me. It doesn't get my juices flowing like a nice fastball or a curveball or a slider or even a screwball put in there.
Not even in person.
No.
That's what everybody says. If you go to a hockey game, it's amazing and exciting with the, just the action, the banging, the crashing into the glass, the quick shots, and the fights and all that. No.
Yeah, no. I just drown my sorrow in $12 beers.
Yeah, it's too expensive to do that. You could be someplace else. You could be at a close bar watching the hockey and drinking $6 beers instead. But here's something else that I never really got about hockey, okay? And I know if you're a hockey fan and if you go to it, you love it. But it's the fights. This is stupid to me. This is the only sport in the world that I can think of outside wrestling, boxing, and MMA where you're allowed to fight, and it's actually the referees just kind of stop. And, it's predictable. Like, oh, here they go. They're about to tangle and mix it up. What the hell does that got to do with hockey? Could you imagine if that happened in any other sport? Could you imagine if that happened in baseball, soccer, basketball, where they're just allowed to slug it out?
Yeah, I mean, it's even worse nowadays because it's kind of sissy fights. Like I used to watch videos of the old school, hockey players where they would actually fight each other, where punches would be falling, blood would be flying. So, I mean, that's enjoyable to watch. It really has absolutely nothing to do with hockey, like you're saying. But, people watch NASCAR for crashes. So, to each their own, I guess. But it doesn't do much for me, especially nowadays when it's just kind of, if those on video don't know, I'm doing my little kitty cat.
That's like
Des the kitty.
Yeah, I was about to say, it looks like Des the kitty when Romo the dog first entered your household.
Oh yeah, that's more like
ferocious. Okay, well, there's your hockey talk. Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals is tonight, Nashville, Pittsburgh. So there you go. But let's talk about the NBA Finals in Game 3. That it seems like, I don't know, I can't really believe that it's really only been Game 3. It just seems like the Warriors are beating Cleveland so bad. It seems like it's been 7-8 games in a row. But Game 3 was just last night, and cue the old guy with the fishing pole. Thought you had it, Cleveland. Nah, no chance. So I think that was their best chance. I think it's over now. I think all spirits, all hopes are gone. I think the team is defeated after that. Cleveland actually played well, and I don't think they can play better than they played last night. And it just Golden State has too much firepower. They closed out on like an 11-0 run in the last 2.5 minutes, and that's it. Ended up winning by 5. So when they were down by I think 5 with like 2 minutes to go, something like that. So it's over, Dan. It's over.
Yeah, and hence why I have probably watched 4 minutes in the entire series because, after just seeing how the teams played leading up, I know Cleveland actually looked good in the Eastern Conference, but I mean, I am with you. I don't want to publicly admit it, but Golden State is just on a different level, and it's not enjoyable to watch them play. For me, it's just not fun. Watching a team that you really don't like do so well. So the NBA Finals for me, honestly, have been absolutely nothing. As I told you before the show, I mean, I was watching HGTV and loving it last night over the NBA Finals. And I mean, I'm a diehard sports addict. I'll watch, Japanese baseball games if I have the chance. And, I get up at 2 a.m. to watch college basketball games. So the NBA Finals, it's kind of shocking that I am missing it, but I'm okay with it. And, I think that's going to speak to more of the state of the NBA and the way they're trending.
Well, something tells me it was girlfriend night then last night. You're not just watching HGTV on your own with any kind of, because I know the Astros had been playing, right? They play every single night.
Yeah, well, they were on the tablet. They're always on the iPad. I always have them too, but the sound and everything, I mean, yes, the girlfriend was accompanying me, but brother versus brother, man, you got to watch those Property Brothers build them damn houses because it's impressive.
Okay, well, I'll take my NBA, but you can always watch some brother versus brother. But what was I going to say? Oh, our predictions pieces. So I can't remember, but you did end up going with Golden State, right? Golden State 7, or did you swing to Cleveland?
No, I had Golden State in 7. I wanted to, in my heart of hearts, I thought it was kind of going to be a series like last year, where it was, Golden State may have had that 3-1 lead, but most of the games were slightly competitive.
Right.
And so I was hoping Cleveland would show up a little bit, give them a little bit more of a fight, steal a few games. But yeah, I mean, if it's not a sweep, I'll be surprised.
So aren't you so glad I didn't pursue my bet with you and several other guys? So here's the deal, folks. This is the bet I proposed to Dan because I was bold out there. I said the Warriors in 5. Okay, so that's bold, but I didn't want to just do a straight up bet. So I was willing to bet Dan. He had to give me 3-1 odds, and so my $50 versus his $150. But I didn't pursue it. Had several other guys want to make bets. Michael Gomez, our own Orlando Torres of the podcast, wanted to get in on some of that action, but I was quiet. I'd let it go because I would have felt so bad had I taken you guys' money. And whether it's a sweep or not, it's definitely not going 6 games, right, Dan?
No, I don't think so. And just to speak on the bet, if you didn't give me 3-1 odds, I would have made that bet, and I would have gladly paid up. You would have been $50 richer. So it's your own. You have to be confident in yourself, New Breed. Be confident with your 5 because that's the thing. You weren't. You wavered to those 3-1 odds, and as the audience hears and sees, you could have had that opportunity for shiny Ulysses S. Grant.
I would have felt bad either way because I've taken so much of your money lately, Dan. I mean, I've taken your pride. You've got an NBA championship on me, but I took your football pride. I've taken so much of your money lately. I just would have felt bad. The other guys, I would have taken their money because they haven't made deposits into my PayPal account yet, but you have. And so, I didn't want to do it to you because I saw it on the writing was on the wall, man. This team is too good. They are an Olympic team playing in the NBA. They really are. But a lot more questions about that to get into. So we'll wrap up the news whip around segment right there. And we're going to get into what is the top 3 American sports to date. 1, 2, 3. We're going to rank them next. Thanks for joining. After a long break, it's been too long. 2-week vacation here. My Fantasy Podcast. Brandon Reed, Dan Schalk here. And something we've been debating for a while now. And like I said before the open of the podcast, I guess I'm the only one even watching these NBA finals. The chat boards are quiet at MFST. No one is saying anything as the Golden State Warriors dominate. No one likes them. Even I said what KD did was a punk move, and I still stand by that. You were one game away from beating those Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals last year, and then you joined them. And see, that's not even close to what LeBron James did. So I didn't like the move, but I'll say this: I'm not gonna be fake about it. I'm not gonna not tell the truth about it. They are the best team probably ever to me. They're exciting to watch. The way they hit threes, they're unstoppable. Too much firepower. Don't really want to get into the whole 90s Bulls versus these Warriors debate, because I think I'll probably lean towards those Warriors just because of the firepower, man. The lights out shooting. But anyway, no one likes them. No one's watching. So they say. So that got us thinking, what is the top 3 American sports? Dan says baseball is way ahead of the NBA. The NBA is trending down. The NBA sucks. No one's watching. I say just the opposite. I say baseball is an outdated sport and no one's keeping up with that anymore. So there you go. That's obvious. My ranking is, of course, I think we're both going to agree. I don't think anyone can dispute that the NFL football is number 1. To me, I'm going NBA, and then I'll probably go MLB. Dan is probably going to say a little bit different, right? So go ahead and rank your top 3. You may surprise me. NBA may not even be in your top 3, Dan.
No. I mean, here's the thing. I think you misquoted me as you made that lovely introduction. But here we go. Yes, NFL is obviously 1. If we're talking right this second, NBA is 2, but they are trending downwards quickly. And I will put baseball 3, but they're trending upwards quickly. So as a statement that I had made was by 2019, the MLB will surpass the NBA as the second most popular sport in the United States. And I think we both have data. My data is going to come true. I mean, we're both in agreement that with these sports leagues, the TV market, the TV deals that they have pay for everything, basically, especially in the NBA. It pays the players' contracts, those ridiculous contracts when Alan Crabb is signing a $75 million extension.
Chandler Parsons signed 97 or whatever it was.
Exactly. And so, the TV money is paying for those deals. Now, they've already been made, but all the stats are showing that they're going downwards. When you're looking at least in regular season TV ratings, every single club saw a decrease. The 2 most popular teams, Golden State and Cleveland, had double-digit decreases. So people just aren't watching anymore, and that's that shows that the downward trend is happening. And I think a lot of it probably has to do with Golden State's dominance. You see that super team, you already know who's going to win. What's the point of watching? And I think fans are getting a little bit upset about it, just from what I've heard on various social media and message boards and things like that. So I don't think the NBA is doing right by their fans right now. Okay.
So as far as the regular season, I got 2 contradictory points to make to you there as far as this year in the NBA. Okay. The NBA season started this year, and it started at the height, at the pinnacle, at almost the peak of a election year. Everything ratings wise is down in an election year because election news and viewership is way up. So everything is down during an election year. And can we be honest? This was the most controversial and most heated and craziest, and everyone had an opinion election year ever, for sure, by far.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but my other thing, I think one of my main points is when you start talking about the regular season, though, Dan, is that basketball has a lot more competition. You got college basketball that starts pretty much right away. You still have football going on. You still have the tail end of college football going on with the bowl games, and then even getting into the Final Four and the championship game. But baseball has no competition in the summertime other than golf. It's played during the dull months. It really, honestly, in like July, there is nothing else going on. Even really June, to be honest with you, when the NBA Finals ends, I just think there's no competition for them, and that helps really kind of maintain or sustain the ratings they get because they're the only game in town in the summertime.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that to agree, but at the same time, 15 years ago, the NFL was still there. There were still, those seasons were still, matching up, and the NBA was higher. And every year, I mean, I gave you the data that I was going to present before the show, showing that the ratings since 1995 has gone down every single year. So, I mean, you can say that the seasons and the time that they play. But, in 1995, yeah, you're going to bring up Michael Jordan. Let's just skip to 2004. It's gone down since then. So there was still football going on. There was still hockey. There were still all those other sports that were being played. But people were still watching back then, and it's drastically gone less.
Okay.
While, and I'll just say this about baseball, their numbers are going up. All 29 of their clubs last season saw an increase in their TV ratings. And 15 of those 29 were up by more than 10%. So, I mean, people are starting to watch baseball again. And it's been an upwards trend for a while, for the past few years. Once you get away from that steroid scandal that I think probably hurt for a little bit, you're more than a decade removed. So, people are starting to come back.
So last year, and this is if you want to look at this year and if you want to talk about trends and if you feel good about this year, this is what I say. Last year's World Series Game 7 drew 40 million viewers, but that was the highest in 25 years that way. That was unbelievable numbers. So in comparison, the 2015 World Series between the Mets and Royals drew 17 for Game 5, which was the closeout game. Not even close. That's actually lower than what we saw in a Game 2 of the Warriors-Cavs series this year for the finals. That was a blowout. So that had a lot to do last year with it being the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs. I mean, you're talking about 108 years of anticipation building into a week or so. So last year was a spike. That is not common. That is not going to be the common theme. That's an exception to the rule.
But do you know how much last year helped build the fan base? It gained so many Major League Baseball fans because they had that crazy postseason. And I think it drew people in. And by the early projections of 2017, the fans are still watching. So, yes, I definitely – well, that 40 million, that's a fantastic number. Major League Baseball was wetting their pants when they got those numbers. They loved it. But it's also the fact that, it did draw people in to check out this game of baseball that maybe they didn't see before. They thought it was boring, but extra inning games where you're hitting walk-off home runs, where you're getting a rain delay right before the game ends. I think it only drew to the intrigue, and it kind of gathered, especially younger fans. I know you can say, well, the game was on so late, but I think the younger fan base was kind of taken to the Cubs, taken to the Indians. One of these two teams who have these slumps for so long is going to win. So, it's definitely, I don't think you're going to see 40 million in the World Series this year. But I think you're probably going to consistently see in the 20s where, in the past it would have been more the teens that you were seeing, baseball in. So they're trending upwards. And a lot of it has to do with the young stars that are coming to the, Major League Baseball, and there's parity. That's honestly what it is. The Cubs are a great team, but look at them this year. They're barely 500. So the fact that you don't know who's going to win, I think it plays a lot into it, where with the NBA, I don't want to watch because I know the outcome before the game starts.
I will agree with you there. The NBA is by far the most predictable sport to me because before the season even started, we knew it was going to be Cleveland and Golden State. And I knew, I think a lot of people were holding out hope, but I knew Golden State was not going to be beat. There was no chance, no one. So I do agree with you there. Baseball probably is the most hardest of the big three we're talking about. Even football is even harder to predict than basketball in the NBA, particularly. Now, March Madness is a whole different story, but the NBA is by far, to me, the most predictable outcome. But I still watch. I just love the game. But in baseball, it's all about, to me, in baseball, it's about who's hot at the right moment. And, probably more so than any sport. Football, a little bit, but it's about whose pitching staff, 1 through 3 and 4 is really hot, and who has, whose batting lineup is really hot, going into it. So you never really know. You cannot predict that until it actually happens. Big World Series for you last year. I will say that, and it did probably draw more fans in. I loved seeing it, and I'm coming from Cardinal territory where people cannot stand the Cubs, will never root for them. They would rather them lose than see 100 years of history broken in their lifetime. I didn't. I loved it. I was a Chicago Cubs fan from back in the day. But so you reached about a 40 million viewers in that World Series Game 7. So last year's NBA Finals Game 7 between the Cavs and the Warriors drew 30 million. That was right there. And we're not talking about 108 years of history. We're just talking about a pretty good, intriguing storyline there. So it was fairly close considering 108 years of history between the Cubs and then the Indians on the other side. So I think that's a pretty comparable number. It's not bad anyway. But this year's being hurt because it is a blowout now. And I don't think Game 4 numbers are going to be very high, honestly. I really don't. So, yeah, it's hard to argue that. But do you have any more stats to throw at me, Dan, and numbers before I give you my closing arguments in this debate?
No, I mean, I think the stats that I listed out speak for themselves already. And, 40 million to 30 million, that's 10 million people. That's still a pretty sizable gap, whether you want to look at history or not. I mean, it's still a Game 7.
But it was the best World Series you could ever hope for in your life.
You have the world's greatest player on the planet right now facing super teams. You mentioned Michael Jordan, and, when I brought up the 1995 statistic. Well, LeBron James is the best player. People gravitate to watch him play, and only 30 million did, where 40 million did for a game of baseball. So, I'm just going to say the stats are there. David Fisdale is hanging in the corner. He's spitting me this data, and he's saying, look at what it's saying. And it's saying baseball is trending up, basketball is trending down. And similar to probably the Grizzlies standings next year, the NBA is going down.
I'm not going to argue. Here's really the crushing and demeaning part about it is if you're any of the, I'd say 28 other teams in the NBA, why are you even trying? Why do you care? Why do you care anymore? Why does it matter what Marc Gasol does? Why does it matter who the Grizzlies sign? Why does it matter how good Mike Conley is? It's just you just love the guys now. It's like they're playing for a participation trophy. Everyone is, You know what I want to see, Dan? I want to see Russell Westbrook join the Cavs. Then we would have an intriguing storyline. You think ratings would be up then if Russell Westbrook would have joined the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's too loyal. I mean, he already signed that 3-year extension when he really shouldn't have. But that would be fantastic. The Cavs have zero cap room. I think they're so much above the luxury tax. But even like a guy like Chris Paul, just get somebody because they need somebody. And I mean, I don't think Chris Paul is going to be the guy at 30 some odd years old, but I think they need to add pieces, and they don't have the necessary cap room or assets to do so. So LeBron's going to be in trouble, and I saw a lot of stuff today as saying, "No, is he going to leave Cleveland again if they get swept?" Because he knows Cleveland won't be able to win, and I don't think he ever would.
Talk about him joining the Lakers, the Clippers.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see exactly what he does. I think he's going to stay put, but the off seasons to come are going to be pretty interesting to see if a superstar does, build a super team to compete against Golden State.
I think that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, I think
Or KD does something else. Maybe he won't. I mean, it's a question we're going to be answering soon, but maybe he will, leave. He only signed that small deal, so he could be on the move. Doubtful, but who knows?
That is a question we're going to get to soon, so we'll get into it. But my closing arguments is this, Dan. You brought up great numbers. I can't argue the popularity thing. You had facts, you had stats coming at me. I think it's more of just a year-by-year basis. But here is the stats and trends that I'm going to present to you now. The NBA Finals has beat the World Series in ratings every year since 2010, except for last year. But last year was, like I said, the greatest World Series you could possibly ever ask for. So I don't see that trend that you're seeing. They both dipped. If you look at the chart pattern, they have both dipped big time since late 80s, 90s. They were both spiking, but they both really dipped big time as far as ratings go. But the NBA is hanging right above baseball and has been since 2010, except for last year when baseball nipped it a little bit. But like I said, incredible World Series. 2012 World Series, Dan. Do you remember who was in that one?
Well, was that it was the Giants. I know that.
Yeah.
Did they beat the Rays that year?
Detroit. They swept Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying. No, not even you remembers that, Dan. Nobody watched that. That World Series was a 30-year low for baseball, 30-plus year low. The chart I saw only went back 30 years, but I would say 30-plus year low for ratings of the World Series. So NBA's hanging right there. When you match up Finals versus World Series, they're still beating them in ratings. They're both low, but they're still hanging in there. So I think it's intriguing. It just depends on who is in the game, who is playing in the game from year to year. This year, I just think the NBA is dealing with a blowout. But I'll tell you this, Dan, if your Astros are leading right now, if your Astros, I don't know, if it's not the Indians, the Yankees, or the Cubs, a combination of those teams in the World Series, then I don't think the ratings are going to be very high.
I definitely think any of those markets will definitely increase whatever ratings you do have. I mean, the Astros, they're kind of taking baseball by storm. I think they're gaining popularity day by day. But if they face off with a team maybe like the Nationals, Washington, D.C., I can see that being, pretty sizable World Series matchup that you would want to watch. You have Carlos Correa versus Bryce Harper, Max Scherzer, Dallas Keuchel. So you got a lot of firepower and star power in that type of matchup. But yeah, I mean, definitely baseball wants those big markets to win, and I mean, it basically every sport league does. NBA wants the Lakers, Celtics. They, the NFL wants Tom Brady in there. Well, maybe Goodell doesn't, but they all want those bigger markets and TV revenue to come in. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out this year when that streak is snapped. But I definitely think it's trending upwards, and I think it's a positive sign for baseball. And I give props to Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the MLB, what he's done. People might not like it, but his pace of play has sped up, at least a half hour to an hour off of a lot of games from when I watched just a few years ago.
So let's just say the Rockies are leading, right? I mean, the Rockies are having a crazy.
That would be terrible for baseball if the Rockies and Astros played each other, because that's that's some bad markets.
So let's say that is the World Series. Let's just go by now the two teams that are leading the AL and the NL. If that is your World Series, like we mentioned before, the numbers, 40 million last year. The year before that, 17 million. Where do you find the Astros-Rockies World Series, honestly?
Probably right around that 17 million mark. I would say it's probably around there. I mean, you still do have a lot of big names, but nobody cares about the Rockies. I bet you half the people you ask on the street, does Colorado have a baseball team? Half of them might not even say that they do. I mean, they can't even sell out their own games, and you can smoke weed inside the stadium. I saw it on a broadcast. So I'm not just making this up. I don't have any experience of actually going there and doing that. But that you can. It's been done, and I saw it on a broadcast. Dude lighting it up, enjoying a little baseball, but they still can't sell out. So People are probably just in the parking lot falling asleep before they get in.
Or maybe the attendance counters are that sounds like the place to be right there. I mean, but watch out, man. That's probably where the most injuries may happen from foul balls right there. That's a stat we need to get next week, Dan. How many people in Colorado at a Rockies game are hit by foul balls?
Interesting. Yeah, I would love to see that data.
Are they leading the league? Are they leading the league? Your guess, yes or no? Are they leading the league?
Probably. Yeah,
I gotta say yes.
Yeah.
I gotta say yes. Wow. Okay. Well, so we don't talk about this anymore for the rest of the show. So your opinion real quick, will the Rockies hang on and maintain, or is this just one of those crazy rises and they're going to fall and they're not going to be there?
No, they got some young pitchers that are actually doing very well to start the year. I want to say they can keep it up. I don't know if they'll keep the division. I still think the Dodgers are the class of that division, but I can see them hanging on for a wild card for sure.
All right. So why don't we answer mailbag questions next? You are listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Thank you for being back with us after the vacation, the long break. I know you missed us. I know you missed these faces. Brandon Reed, Dan Schalk is there. We're all alone, just a two-man show today. Scheduling conflicts, like I said, everything. It's hard to get everybody together, but we are very fortunate we got fans like you that help create this debate and help create this show and help keep us talking. So many great questions from you. So we're going to start answering them right now. We're going to start with the NBA. The first one comes from Timothy Lamon. Say the Warriors sweep the Cavs, or heck, even they lose a game or two. Is this bad for the NBA? I have been a diehard basketball fan since the days of Pistol Pete. Now I refuse to watch this nonsense they call basketball. These super teams hurt the overall quality of the game. Agree? Disagree? Your thoughts. So, I'm going to start with you, Dan. You may be more aligned and maybe sharing. I think you've expressed your frustration a lot more along the lines with Timothy Lamon. So you lead us off on this question.
Yeah, Timothy Lamon, you are a preacher. You're preaching to the choir right now. Hashtag preach. Love it. That's one of the reasons why I brought this on air. I couldn't agree more. I haven't watched, like I said, maybe 4 minutes of the NBA Finals, and that's it. The regular season, I barely watched. I can't stand blowouts. Even if it wasn't Golden State, if it was Cleveland blowing out Golden State, I probably still wouldn't watch, to be honest with you, just because it's just not exciting when it's 20 to 30-point games. And to be honest, piss poor defense. You just allow dunks in the lane, which it's cool to see to an extent, but I like the kind of inner workings, playing that tough, hardcore defense. And, in today's NBA, you don't see it. And I lose a lot of respect, like Brandon said earlier, for guys like Kevin Durant who just go to win a ring. To me, Kevin Durant, his legacy is tarnished. This ring doesn't even count for me. Show me that you can build it and win it with Oklahoma City like you could have with Russell Westbrook instead of going to bail out. So I don't like it. I didn't even like when LeBron went to Miami. I thought that was bad for the NBA. Glad to see that he went back and tried to, and actually obviously ended up winning one with Cleveland. But overall, I can't stand it.
4. He only won 2 out of 4 years with Miami.
Yeah, but the first one, he was so terrible in the finals. I mean, I can't. Can you believe LeBron in that? I mean, he was so bad against Dallas, so bad. I think he took 4 shots in one game at like 5 points. He just didn't even try. It looked like. So that was shocking. But it's just, to me, it's not exciting. And at least those games were close. Like I watched that series beginning to end. I was rooting for Dallas hard. But that was exciting. At least they were close games, close competitive games. You didn't know for sure Miami was going to win. But that was, them, and then obviously Boston starting the super teams, but it's still not the same, with Kevin Durant going to Golden State, because they already had an NBA Finals winning team.
Well, I just disagree with you guys, because we've seen this so many times throughout the history of basketball, and I think it may be more personal feelings of, particularly you, Dan, is that you just don't like Steph Curry. You don't, and I know you don't like what KD did. I can agree with you there. Like I said before, it was a punk move. I hate it, but I don't think you just don't like the Golden State Warriors. The Chicago Bulls did the same thing. They had 2 3-peats. I'm not even sure the Golden State Warriors are going to reach a 3-peat. They got this championship in the bag. So we're talking about 2 out of 3, but I don't know that they're going to win 3 in a row. It's very hard in today's age. And someone else can do the same thing to them. Like this crazy scenario I mentioned before. What if Russell Westbrook does join the Cavs for some reason? You don't know. Who knows? Anything can happen. So I don't know that this is just necessarily a domination that's going to kill the league. This is one of the most exciting teams to watch ever, if not the most exciting team to watch ever in the history of the game. So you got the. But 90s.
I don't think it's fun to watch. Like they're just crushing their opponents, which is great if you're a Golden State fan. But if you're just a casual basketball fan, I don't think that's fun. I just don't think the non-competitive games. Like, I mean, 2 years ago when Golden State was clearly better than Cleveland with LeBron James and Matthew Dellavedova as the second best player, I watched those games because they were at least competitive. Now it's not. And, Cleveland is a much better team than they were 2 years ago, and they could still steal 2 games, in that series.
But you don't think it's exciting how the Golden State Warriors play like the Globetrotters and hit?
I don't watch.
Steph Curry hits. Has a high probability of hitting anything that he shoots. Klay Thompson, even Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. You don't think that's exciting the way they play, shooting the long ball?
No. I wish the NBA would adopt a rule where the defender can punch Steph Curry in the stomach every time he takes a jump shot. Then I would watch. I would get a lot of entertainment out of that. But I mean, it's I don't necessarily mean it as disrespect to the Golden State Warriors, but they're just too good, and it's not enjoyable for me. I need that close up and down action where. If a team goes on a 5-0 run and it can actually swing the game, not goes on a 25-0 run and he pushes it away even more. It's not for me. And Timmy Lamon, me and him agree.
Well, okay. I feel you. I got you. I see where you're coming from. And you're coming from a spot of hate in your heart. That's what it is. You're just a hater, Dan. You're just a hater. The Bulls in the 90s won 6 out of 8 titles, 2 3-peats. And I will be the first to admit, yeah, they had haters too. I was one of them. I wanted Utah, Karl Malone and John Stockton, John Hornacek, and those guys, and Jerry Sloan to win that title so bad.
They at least made it close. They won some games. So, yeah. They gave Jordan a run for his money. He needed to have that flu game. He needed to be able to make some unbelievable plays, game-winning shots. Now the game-winning shot is 5 minutes into the first quarter.
But ultimately it didn't matter. It's still the same.
That's fine with Golden State winning. Just win in 7 games. Don't give me this sweep by winning of 25 plus points. If make it to Game 7, I'm going to be glued to my TV, but they're not.
So you don't agree with or appreciate the fact that we may be seeing the greatest collective team ever. They got 2 MVPs on their team. You don't appreciate that at all. 2
phonies on their team, too. Actually, probably more than that. They're full of phonies. Draymond, come preach at me. I would love to. Me and Draymond, we'd go at it, and I'll bet you, we'd know how that turned out. It wouldn't turn out well for his shiny, pearly white teeth.
Okay, well, I wrap my case up. That's such hate coming there, and it wouldn't go well for Draymond. Okay, well, anyway, and then like I talked to you before today, the Boston Celtics won 11 out of 12 titles in the late 50s and 60s. That didn't kill basketball by any means. It's a trend. It's a pattern here. We hadn't seen this since the Bulls, really. And it's been a long time ago. It's been 20 years ago.
All right. That's why the NBA has been good until now. So now is, unless the only way if the NBA doesn't get another super team to compete with Golden State, it's going to be bad for the NBA. It's just plain and simple. It's going to be bad if there's no competition for Golden State.
Okay. Well, here's my opinion of it. And Timothy Lamon wants to know, does it hurt the overall quality of the NBA? And I'm going to say no. It hurts 2 teams. It hurts Oklahoma City and it hurts Cleveland because they're the only 2 teams that had a chance of winning the NBA title anyway, minus Kevin Durant from the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors were going to be back in the NBA Finals, or at least the Western Conference Finals. I honestly think had KD stayed at Oklahoma City with the draft day moves they made by bringing in Sabonis and Andre Robertson, Oladipo, sorry, that I think they were going to be even more competitive had they stuck together. And that's why I was kind of blindsided by the move too. I think they could have beat the Golden State Warriors. We've talked about this before. I think me and Dan both agree that San Antonio, while they had a great showing in game one until Kawhi got hurt, I think they were just a little old. I don't think they were for real. They have great regular seasons all the time. I just don't think they were going to be propelled this late in those guys' career to another NBA Finals. I just don't think so. I think Golden State was the true, or Oklahoma City, I'm sorry, would have been the true number 2 seed had KD stayed on that team. And you got Cleveland in the East pretty much by themselves, didn't even earn the number 1 seed, and got through everybody that they played and made it back in the finals. So KD joining Golden State really only hurt Oklahoma City and Cleveland, because there's the only 2 teams that had a chance to win the NBA title, not named Golden State. You want to know what's killing the NBA, Timothy Landon and Dan Schalk? Adam Silver pretty much said the same thing on air last night. It's the one and done rule. It's killing college basketball, and it's really hurting the quality of the NBA. That's what's hurting. If you had some more developed guys, then maybe the overall depth of the league would be greater, where you wouldn't have these super teams. I don't know. There would just be more options. But you got so many young guys. You have your superstars, and you got these flood of young guys. Case in point, Dan, your Minnesota Timberwolves that you picked with Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, both of those guys played, 2 years combined of college? They still hadn't figured out the NBA game. There's so many teams. The Philadelphia Sixers keep a team like that. Great young talent, all the promise in the world, but it takes a while to figure out the game. That's something you need in college. You need great college coaches. You need to play great competition in college to build up that skill before you become a professional. You can't just come out of high school in 1 year out of college and not really know what you're doing. Because a lot of these guys, to be honest with you, if you're an NBA talent going through high school, you've never really been taught to play the game of basketball. You're the best player in the state, and you're giving all the minutes, and you do what you want to do out there on the basketball floor. You don't have a coach telling you what to do unless you play for one of those great prep academies. So you're never really even told what to do in college, and a lot of times in college you're not even told what to do. So you get to the NBA, you're like, damn, I'm just another guy. I really don't even know what I'm doing. So that's what's hurting the NBA game. But what hurts me even more, that it's really killing the college game, because you don't see it like it was in the 80s and 90s with really great competition. You don't really know who's winning March Madness. There's so much parity in March Madness now, and a lot of times the guys who do win March Madness, the teams that do win March Madness, have that one hot young and dunner. Like even my guys Memphis, who made the championship game with the Derrick Rose. Without Derrick Rose, Memphis was Sweet 16, maybe an Elite 8 team. They were not making the championship game. They had Derrick Rose. So that to me is what's killing both the game of basketball, period. And Adam Silver even kind of addressed that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's another point. I would love to see, as more of a fan of college basketball that I am of the NBA, I would love to see guys stick around and play. And that's kind of why, as a fan of the Colorado Buffaloes, it's, I don't have to worry about that, because they don't really draft one and done guys. So I get to watch my guys develop into players, throughout 4 years. So I like watching them. But overall, for college basketball, not only does it hurt the players, does it hurt college basketball, obviously the NBA teams with the development, but also just rivalries of college basketball themselves. Like, Duke, North Carolina, if you had those guys playing multiple years together against each other, it just makes it a lot more fun to watch. And I hope something does change, whether they make it a 2-year, or kind of like a football, after your third junior year, you can leave. So I would like to see them change it. Who knows if they will? But I do agree that's definitely a factor.
Well, honestly, just the quality of the game was better, because when you have juniors and seniors who are really good playing basketball, the game looks better. The game is better. And instead of you have basically juniors and seniors who don't have NBA talent, who have just been around so long and are solid players, along with this young, hot rookie, or this freshman. that's coming. You have to interweave into the mix, and you got one shot at it. And the basketball is just not as good. So that's what's killing the game. But I really don't think it's the Warriors' domination. We've seen it too many times. And while I'll admit even Chicago had haters back in the day, it didn't kill the game of basketball. This is just a thing. It's just a thing, and we're not guaranteeing that the Warriors are going to become a dynasty. We'll see. Anyone else? Yeah, there's a lot of other free agents. There could be opportunities for more super teams. I just think we're in a time right now where this happens to be the team and there's no beating them. But thanks for the question, Timothy Lemon. Let's move on. Next one comes from Tony Spaghetti Rosenwee. I'd like to know how he got that name, Tony Spaghetti. Is this a guy from the Bronx or what, huh?
I do not know, but he put spaghetti in there. So, if you put in what you want it to be called, I'll put it verbatim. So spaghetti it is.
Tony Spaghetti Rosenwee. All right. Do you think KD will actually take less money to keep the Dubs together? I'll go first. Yeah, I think he will. But I think the bigger question is, what is Steph Curry going to do? Because Steph Curry has no contract anymore. He's going to have to negotiate. And with the new collective bargaining, the free agency caps, he could be in line to make Steph Curry, that is $45 to $50 million. Now, if Durant doesn't take a max deal here, he's only costing himself possibly $4 or $5 million this particular year. So he's going to have to weigh the fact if another ring, if going back to back, winning back to back titles is worth $4 or $5 million to him. I think it probably is. So I don't think he's the problem. I think Steph Curry is going to be the problem. Durant himself, he's scheduled to make 27 plus million. He could get up to 34 million with a max deal from what I'm reading. But there's also the possibility of signing another 2-year extension there. But Steph Curry is the problem. But here's the thing. He's been in the league 8 years. He has won an NBA title and 2 MVPs and only makes $12 million a year. That's crazy. He needs to take this money. He needs to take as much money as he can, but is he going to do it and sacrifice winning? Because as of right now, the Warriors only have 6 players under contract next season. So if Curry does take anything, to me, if Curry takes anything more than $40 million, it could really strap the Warriors and put them in a really bad situation and hurt them. So that is something that could break up this dynasty that you haters may need to want to keep an eye on. Is how much money is Steph Curry going to take in the offseason? Because you start paying $45 million and $30 million. And I think the cap next year is projected to be $103 million with a luxury line of, I think, $122. So that adds up quick, and you start looking around and you only got 9 players on your roster, and that probably ain't winning a championship. You got no depth then.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Steph Curry's smart, he'll definitely leave Golden State. Definitely just walk away. And show us that he's, a true NBA champion, and go to a place like Charlotte and win there, your hometown. That's, if he wants to gain any respect, that's what I think he'll do. But I think KD will probably also know, listen, Steph has made, donuts in actual contracts in the NBA. He signed that extension in Golden State coming off of his last ankle injury before he kind of blew up into the player that he is. So I definitely think he'll go for the money. Obviously, he can get more money at Golden State than anywhere else just due to the CBA. But, maybe Golden State lowballs him. Kevin Durant doesn't take less. I can see him, who knows, going somewhere else. But ultimately, I think, KD will take less money. Steph will sign a nice max deal, and they'll both stay in Golden State.
Like I said, they only got 6 players under contract next year. You got to build a team. How are they going to do that? If
they'll sign stupid guys like David Lee and other old guys just to fill out the roster on minimum vet deals. I mean, I think they probably think they have enough talent and have shown that they kind of do to kind of maybe make it back to the finals, to say the least.
So you think Steph probably makes about $48 million, close to $50 million next year, and KD does what?
I think I don't know the actual dollars, but I think Steph will sign. I think because he was a made an All-NBA team, I think he's eligible for a super max deal. Maybe he's not going to sign that super max deal. He'll just sign that max contract. So maybe it's not as high as it possibly could be, but it's still going to be considered a max deal. And that, I mean, who knows what KD will take, but I think he's going to take a lot less. I mean, these guys make so much money in endorsements anyways. Their NBA contract is usually actually secondary to that.
That's true. That's definitely true. But anyway, I don't think it's so much in this offseason is what KD is going to do. I think KD staying put. He loves where he's at. I think it's more about how much money Steph Curry is going to make, and then what the team looks like next year. Like I said, if you look at their roster, I got their salaries right here. These are the guys who do not have a contract going into next year. Of course, Steph Curry, who will have to sign a deal, but Andre Iguodala, Jason Thompson, Sean Livingston, Zaza Pachulia, Anderson Varejao, David West, JaVale McGee, Ian Clark, James Michael McAdoo, Matt Barnes, Elliott Williams, Briante Weber, Elgin Cook. No, we're getting kind of the bottom of it. But anyway, Phil Pressey's on that team. Anyway, those are some of the guys who are not even have a contract next year. So that team, either way, is going to look drastically different next year. But as long as they keep that core four, they have their guys, Draymond and Klay Thompson, wrapped up for a little while. So at least 2 years. So they'll be okay there. But, that team will look different next year, but as long as they keep that core together, we'll see. Tony Spaghetti Rosenwee. Let's go to the next one. This is from, I love these names. Kansas Perkins. Give me an NBA draft sleeper that might not be drafted in the lottery, but could develop into a star. I'll let you go first, Dan.
Yeah, for those who follow the site, they see some of the draft profiles that I'm pumping out for the NBA draft. It's definitely been a lot slower process than NFL. It takes me a little bit to diagnose film, basketball-wise and football-wise. But a guy that
a lot shorter draft though.
Yes, yeah, not as many prospects, which is definitely nice to see. A guy that I'm gonna mention, I watched him a lot this year. He went to Colorado, so I'm pretty familiar with him. And that's Derrick White, point guard. He's about 6 foot. He averaged 18 points per game, 4.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds. He can kind of do it all. But he's got a good story. He actually played at Division II for 3 to 4 years before transferring to Colorado as a graduate transfer. So, he's kind of come up through the ranks, wasn't a high recruit, played Division II, and then came to, Division I at Colorado and kind of dominated Pac-12 play. He was, a Pac-12, all Pac-12 selection. So he's definitely a solid player. Depending on where you're looking, he's been ranked as high as 26, as low as 60. So he's going to be kind of in that late first round, second round conversation. But he's a point guard who's a veteran guy who can kind of come in and give you some minutes as a rookie. I don't know if he's necessarily going to develop into a star, but I think he can develop into a solid role player in the NBA for a guy that you're going to get possibly second round, at least late first.
There you go. Any other guys on that radar you think that could fall just right outside that lottery, but could be a star?
I think he's going to be a lottery pick, and that's the Frank Ntilikina, however you want to pronounce that. He's an international guy. I just brought his draft profile up on the site a couple days ago, but he's another point guard. I mean, this draft is full of guards. He could be on the fringe lottery pick, but he's going to be a stud. His game film is pretty impressive. He's got that high basketball IQ, kind of a playmaker, but can also shoot, which was good to see. So I think he's going to be a solid guy. And I heard the Mavericks were actually looking at him. I think they have a late, maybe 9th or 10th overall pick. So I don't think he's going to escape out of the lottery, but another guy who's not talked about a lot, who I think can be a stud at the next level.
All right. Well, I got 3 guys I want to mention real quick. 2 of them are Dookies. One of them is a guy that Dan just presented his draft profile on. So check out the site, myfantasysportstalk.com, and that guy is Luke Canard. This dude he's 6'6", 205. Shoot the ball from anywhere, from any position. Like, if you watch his game film, he's just a shooter. I mean, he just does it from anywhere. Doesn't even matter what his footwork is like. He just shoots it 1 foot, 2 foot, off balance, left, right. It doesn't matter. From anywhere on the floor, he shoots the ball. So just a pure crafty scorer, and he definitely has an NBA game. So I think he probably is one of those guys that's going to fall outside the lottery, but could be just hang around the league forever and shoot basketballs in the NBA. So star, borderline. But another guy from Duke is the Harry Giles guy, 6'10", 240 from Duke. Long, explosive, decent range, decent touch, can run the floor, can block shots. And don't forget the fact that he was the #1 player coming out of high school in 2016. So the potential is definitely there. Just a long frame. You just don't know yet. He's 19. So that's a guy I included in the list because I think he can be a star. You just can't say otherwise. I don't feel comfortable saying otherwise, yes or no. You just don't know. It's too early. But that dude has the frame to be that guy already. And then another guy, I'm surprised you didn't mention him, Dan. I don't know if you think he's going to be a lottery pick. I don't think he's going to slide outside the lottery. I don't really know, but I think he definitely has the chance to be a really solid star in the league. Borderline all-star. We'll see. I don't really know. It depends on how his game is going to develop, but I think he brings a very good skill set, and that is your boy from Purdue, Caleb Swanigan.
Yeah.
6'9", 250 from Purdue, more double-doubles than any player in Big Ten history. That should tell you something. I mean, what did he average, Dan? He averaged like 18, 13 or something like that. I mean, it was ridiculous numbers.
That's a solid get because, he'll probably fall outside of the lottery, but as coming out as a sophomore, he's got some polish to his game already. And, I mean, anybody who can just eat glass the way he does, you're going to be able to get minutes as a rookie too.
He can pass out of the double team. He can hit from distance. He reminds me of another former Purdue guy, Big Dog Glenn Robinson. And then mixed with a little DeJuan Blair from Pitt, too. That's kind of how he reminds me of. So now neither one of those guys had, I would say, star-studded seasons in the NBA or careers in the NBA, but they were both really good. So if you mix that combination of skill together, I think he definitely has a possibility. And I'm seeing him projected definitely outside the lottery. So we'll see. But definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Big name, so.
Yeah, Glenn Robinson was pretty good in NBA Jam, so you got to give him props for that.
Well, he was good in the NBA too. His career was not real long, but he was dominant in college. Man, that dude had the complete game. He could power you down, back you down, dunk on you, fadeaway jump shot on you, square up free throw jumper on you, hook shot you, kill you on the glass. He was a beast in college. So, but anyway, if Caleb Swanigan can kind of mix those two guys' skill set, a frame kind of like Charles Barkley, right? 6'9", 250.
Yeah.
I think he has a little bit more shooting skill than Barkley did.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall Barkley's offensive game is probably a little bit better. I mean, I think he had a little bit more inside presence. I know Swanigan does, but he's got to show that mean streak. I want him to kind of take over games, and I think that's something he kind of lacked at Purdue. Is give me that ball, let me kind of take over. I wanted to see him do that a little bit more, but I definitely think he's going to be a solid pro. I loved watching him.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something else I forgot to mention about Harry Giles is I think he looks a little soft at times. He just doesn't look real forceful at times, and that's something he's going to have to improve in. But so many guys so young have to do in the NBA, so I think he needs to add some really brute strength to go with his high flying and explosiveness, and he could be really dangerous. So those are just a few guys, but appreciate the question, Kansas Perkins. Sorry we didn't throw in a Kansas guy for you. Kansas Perkins, that's a great name, man. Appreciate the question. The next one comes from Nuff Said Joe Compton, COMPTON. The Lakers and Lonzo are a match made in heaven. Magic is Jesus. There's no question marks in this one. That's just a statement. That's just what he says. And the Lakers and Lonzo are a match made in heaven. Magic is Jesus. So, Dan, if someone told that to you, such as Joe Compton, COMBTON, what would you say to Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They are a match made in heaven. I don't know about Magic Johnson being Jesus. That's a Laker term, I guess, because I haven't heard it before. But yeah, I mean, I thought this would go. This statement, I guess we'll call it, would go well with the piece that I brought out. That I don't think the Lakers are going to be passing on Lonzo. I think they're throwing out a lot of smoke screens. I know it caught your eye, Brandon, on how they're not, sold on Lonzo being their number 2 overall pick. But as long as the Celtics go Fultz and don't do something stupid like draft Lonzo, because he refused to work out with him, he obviously doesn't want to be a part of that team. I think you can't shy away from drafting that type of special talent. Not only homegrown, but he's going to bring the marketability back to LA that they've lost since Kobe has left. So he's going to be a star, and there's no way that the Lakers and Magic Johnson don't draft him.
I agree, man. I think it's a match made in heaven. I just want to know, you got to work out other guys. You got to give everybody. Not this is a fairly deep draft class. De'Aaron Fox could really impress. Josh Jackson could really impress. Nick Collins could really impress. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have to go out there and play basketball and show me what you got. I'm not just going to take you just because you're an LA guy and your dad's a big mouth, and it's said for 6 years that you're going to the Lakers. So I don't really know. Do I like Alonzo Ball's skill set? Yes. Do I hate his baggage, meaning i.e. his father? Yes. I really hate that. But I still think he is a hell of a player. He's kind of a Magic type, big, frame, can really pass, can score. I like the potential there. So I definitely think he would be number 1 on the Lakers' radar as of right now. But it's still got to be proved. But I would say, why not this? Watch out for Chris Paul rumors. Now, Chris Paul wanted to go to the Lakers in the first place. If you remember, David Stern blocked the deal, and he ended up with the Clippers. So he's a free agent. If that happens, maybe you draft someone else. You move D'Angelo Russell. I don't know. Word is that no one is safe on the Lakers roster right now but Brandon Ingram. And I've mentioned this before on the chat board and stuff, Dan, I'm not really a D'Angelo Russell fan. I think the level of immaturity he has proven in the past could lead to professional problems. I'm not sure it will get any better. I just think he's a guy. He's a guy. And when he's 26 years old, 27 years old, he's just going to be a guy, nothing special. So, he's expendable. But I don't know. I think if Magic has the chance to get Chris Paul, which is where he wanted to be 6 years ago, I think you have to rethink things a little bit. So I don't know, just something to keep an eye on for. But personally, if you ask me, I think you do have to draft Lonzo, or else the fans may ridicule you and kill you in the press, and VAR might actually literally kill you with a gun. He might shoot you if you don't take his boy Lonzo. So, but I love Brandon. Here's something. Check this out, Dan. I put this together. Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Larry Nance. You trade D'Angelo Russell, find another good piece, and maybe you get Chris Paul. So would maybe a Josh Jackson fit in that? So let's check this out. Brandon Ingram, Josh Jackson. Well, I don't know. Larry Nance. You got options there is what I'm saying. Keep your eyes open. I don't think you have to be cemented to Lonzo Ball, but I say keep Brandon Ingram. I like Larry Nance Jr. And then maybe if you have a chance to get Chris Paul, is that not an option?
No, I mean, I think the Lakers would definitely go for that. I don't think Chris Paul would go to the Lakers. I mean, I know he wanted to go there, but they were also a lot different team then. I mean, the Lakers aren't competing with the Warriors anytime soon, even with a big baller and Lonzo Ball, and I don't see them maybe making a push for an 8th seed, but I don't see them jumping up to a top 4.
Not even Magic could offer to pay him a lot of money and convince him with his magic charm.
No, but even if he does come there, I mean, where are they? Are they a 7 seed? I don't. I wouldn't even say they could beat the Grizzlies in a 7-game series. It's decent on paper, but Chris Paul's getting older. He's whining just as much, and need more development out of, those guys like Brandon Ingram, maybe even a Julius Randle. Different guys need to start to step up for them to be actually a contender, even with Chris Paul on the roster.
Yep. There's options out there, though. They're a young team. They got some promise. They definitely got options. Like I said, I would actually be in favor of moving D'Angelo Russell, like I said. But I think you keep Brandon Ingram. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But great question. I don't know. It's going to be very intriguing, and that is something that I'm looking forward to very, very early in the draft to kick off our draft show live here on YouTube, Dan.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. The more times that I'm bringing out profiles and learning up on all the prospects, I can't wait to see where they go. And not only that, we've mentioned it before, but an NBA draft day is insane. It's not like the NFL. You're going to get a guy drafted 5th overall, and he's going to get packaged in a deal for the 12th overall pick and somebody else. So, we're going to stay on top of it, and that's a good thing about our draft show is we're going to be able to tell you when those trades happen. So if you stay with us live on YouTube through the whole time, you're going to be able to get that info, not only who gets drafted, but when they get traded and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
And I would go as far as to say the NBA draft is a lot more impactful on teams in the NBA season than the NFL draft. Just because there's not as many guys on an NBA roster, So if you have a really hot stud rookie or in a package deal or a trade, like you said, Dan, on draft night, it's going to impact the league and the team dramatically. So you add a point guard who possibly would start next season, then you're talking about something serious. It's a little bit different than a Mitchell Trubisky who was reached for and grabbed this year and may not even be the starter. I don't know. So we'll see, but it's going to be very exciting draft night. Join us live right here on YouTube, My Fantasy Podcast, for our live NBA draft show, June 22nd, starting at 6 Central Time, I believe. Right, Dan? We're going to go 6 to 9 Central Time or roughly whenever it starts.
Which is 7 to 10 Eastern for those Eastern folks. And what would that be? 4 to 7 Pacific? Huh? We got all the time zones covered here at My Fantasy Podcast.
We're just going to follow the draft, and we started out with what we thought was going to be a 3-hour draft on NFL draft night, turned into a 4-hour show for us live, and we loved it. So we'll do the same NBA draft night, June 22nd. Let's talk about Major League Baseball and fantasy questions that you submitted next. We'll do it. Come back. You are listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. So Orlando warned us a couple of weeks ago that the fans are talking, man. People of the site are talking. We need more fantasy baseball. And I know Dan has no problem with that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to expand this fantasy baseball talk big time today with a few mailbag questions. Brandon Reed, Dan Schalk here on My Fantasy Podcast. Just the two of us holding it down this week. So glad you're back. So glad to be back with you guys. And these questions have been building up. And so we've got a lot to get to. But let's start it out with a question from Chuck Layson. Even this is Dan, and I'm with you, Dan. I'm following how Astros loaded these questions are. I'm following you. I'm getting you. Don't think you're fooling me for a second. These questions are Astros loaded. But Chuck Layson, I can't believe the Astros are on this kind of a tear, but I'm sure that makes you happy, Dan. What moves do they need to make at the deadline to be a true World Series contender? So I'm going to start it out, Dan, because it's your area of expertise. I'm going to let you go as long as you want to. I'm just going to add some supplemental debate topics and conversation pieces for you, because I don't know. They're number one in hits, runs, home runs, total bases, batting average. Their starting pitchers have the most wins, second lowest ERA, second fewest runs giving up. They're and I wrote this last night, so I'm sorry I don't have last night's results, but they're 42-17, 22-7 on the road, 9-1 their last 10, 13 of their last 15. They have three really solid starters with Keuchel, McCullers, and Peacock. So just breaking down what I see, Dan, if you had to address anything, I'm guessing it would be maybe the depth of your relievers, your closer, or maybe some kind of weakness in fielding somewhere. So I'm saying, are they not serious World Series contenders already?
No, I mean, yeah, I think they, with the roster that Jeff Lunau, the general manager, has put together, I definitely think that they are contenders right now. But Lunau has shown that he wants to make some deals, so I expect him to be pretty active at the trade deadline. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head with the bullpen piece. I would like another lefty arm coming out of the bullpen. They only have one, and that's Tony Sipp, and he's not living up to the hype that he had 2 years ago when he first started really pitching well for the Astros. But he's their only lefty arm. I would like him to get maybe one more. And while I do like the top three of Keuchel, McCullers, Peacock, that third starter, I would like more of a veteran kind of been there before presence, not only in the locker room, but just on the field. When it's Major League Baseball playoffs, you're basically throwing three starters out there, pitching in the course of a series, maybe four, but usually just three. So Peacock's wheeling and dealing right now, but his history, it hasn't shown that he's actually able to sustain that type of play. And, he's done some new things. He picked up a slider that he didn't have before. So he's definitely been impressive, and I would love to throw him out there if he's pitching the way he is in September, is now, and, in September and October. But if they can get a guy, even, Garrett Cole has been thrown around from the Pirates, Chris Archer from the Rays, Sonny Gray from the A's. Those are some high-end ace-type stuff where you're going to have to give away a lot of talent in your farm system. So I look at a guy maybe like a Matt Moore in San Francisco. He's a lefty too, which I also like, but he's a veteran guy, has pitched in the postseason before and can slot in at that 3 or 4 starter for the Astros. So don't touch your lineup at all. The offense is on fire. You guys have the depth, the starters, the base stealing, the actual deep ball, long threat, and you play great defense. So I wouldn't touch the lineup at all. Bullpen, maybe a starting pitcher, but other than that, leave it alone.
So that's what I was going to ask you about and get your take on, because of course I don't watch the Astros nightly and know the depth of the team. So going back to the fielding, you don't have any weaknesses in the fielding situation that might need to be addressed? I mean, because as far as the lineup goes, no, you don't really want to touch that. But is there any position on the field that just can't field very well that might need to be looked at?
To be honest, no, not really. I mean, I guess you can say left fielder when Nori Aoki is in the game, but basically every single game, about the 6th or 7th inning, Jake Merznick comes in. So George Springer's the starting center fielder. He'll shift over to right. Josh Reddick, who's in right, will move over to left, and Jake Merznick will take center. So their outfield is probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive outfields in the all of the American League, Major League Baseball. So they have some guys on their bench that come in for those defensive replacements, and then the infield, you just have guys that don't make mistakes. Alex Bregman is a shortstop playing third base, so his glove is fantastic. Carlos Correa and Jose Altuve, that double play connection is phenomenal. And Yuli Gurriel is a converted third baseman playing first base, and he's done a very, very good job making that transition. And then your catchers, Gaddis and McCann, 2 veteran guys who do a fantastic job. So no, I wouldn't touch anything at all.
Looking at the numbers and looking at the stats and kind of breaking it down, I got to agree. I did not see the weakness. And like I said, if it has to be somewhere, it has to be in that bullpen somewhere if you want to get stronger. But yeah, I'm not touching that lineup at all. So, but bottom line is, from what I've seen and the way they're soaring right now, is I think they are World Series contenders already. Not really sure you got to do anything, but thanks for the question, Chuck Layson. I'm not sure if you're an Astros fan or keep up with them or not, but look out for them. I think they're right there, no doubt. Next question comes from Kyle Ward. In a redraft league, I was offered George Springer for Mike Trout and Kelvin Herrera. Should I take it? So I'll start out again and let Dan go. Because I know Dan is probably going to say, yes, grab any and every wonderful Houston Astro you can. But is it really a good deal? Question mark. I think someone's trying to fleece our boy Kyle here because Trout is hurt right now. And I think Trout will be back around the 4th of July, if I had to say, around that area. And once Trout's back, I don't think that thumb injury is going to hamper him that much. It's on his left hand, so non-throwing hand. Of course, he has to grip the glove, grip the bat, but I don't think it's going to affect him that much. But anyway, I'm going to stack Trout's production against Springer's any day, although it's on a pretty level playing field right now, but still, it's Mike Trout, George Springer. So, but the thing is, I really like Kelvin Herrera in this situation. I think Herrera is putting up decent fantasy numbers and being pretty consistent, for a reliever guy. He's putting up 7, 8, 9 fairly consistently as a reliever. So, I don't know. I think right now Herrera is probably helping make up for a little bit of lack of production while Trout is out. So you're basically, once Trout comes back, which is pretty soon, it's a long season, then you're trading two pretty good guys, which I said I think Trout and Springer's production is pretty even, pretty on a level playing field, and Herrera has no signs of not being consistent and going on in the future. So I guess what I'm saying is I think if you did do this deal by mid-July, you may not be happy with it. I don't know. Dan, you're the expert. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw the question, my immediate reaction was, yeah. I mean, get George Springer. He's red hot right now. Mike Trout's hurt. Kelvin Herrera, he's definitely had a great year, but he hasn't. I think a lot of people pegged him as one of those top two or three relievers, and he's been a little bit stepped down from that. So at first, I'm like, yeah, definitely take George Springer. But the more I'm looking at it, you look at Trout, like you said, he's only going to be out, for maybe 3 to 4 more weeks. If you're lucky. I mean, obviously you could have a setback and be out longer. The way I would approach this trade is based on your standings. So if you are at the bottom of your standings, make the deal. Try and get the instant production right now. Win a few weeks, maybe with George Springer's bat. Always, popping a couple Springer dingers. It's going to definitely help you out in the short term. If you're high up, first, second, third, even fourth place, ride it out. Just wait until Trout comes back. It's only, if you lose all 3-4 weeks, you probably still have a chance to be in playoff contention, and then you can just ride Mike Trout and Kelvin Herrera, throughout the course of the season. So, weigh it like that. Look at your standings. If you're low, you need some wins right away. Make the deal, and then just hope that maybe Trout doesn't come back to form right away, and Springer continues to stay hot, which I think he will. He's not going to have as good of a batting average as Mike Trout. He won't probably steal as many bases, but home runs and RBI production will be pretty similar. So that's the way I would look at it if I was in that position. Look at your standings. Do you need to win right away, or can you wait a little bit?
And that's a great point. And that's my final point on that question is it was going to be depending on where your standings are. If you're behind and you need to catch up really quickly and can't afford for Mike Trout to be out right now, then you probably need to go ahead and make the deal. But like Dan said, if you're in the top percentage of the standings and you feel okay about your situation, then I wouldn't trade those 2 for 1. I wouldn't trade that. So it just depends on your particular situation in the standings in your league right now. And I don't know when the question was submitted. Of course, we're a couple of days behind on the podcast. So I don't know if you made a move, yet or not, Kyle. So sorry for the delay there, but that's our take on it. And I hope you got some good feedback on that question. Appreciate it, guy. The last MLB question comes from Walter McDaniel. This may be a shot in the dark, but who is having a bad first half that may be a low budget or a buy low target for the rest of the season? So looking for guys that are having bad first halves of the season that you possibly could get for low value for the rest of the season. And just so what I kind of did is my baseball knowledge has nowhere near the depth, not even a fraction of the depth that Dan has. So I'm going to let him go. But what I did for you, Walter, is I looked at the guys who were projected to have MVP type seasons And then I looked at their numbers right now, just a couple of months into the season, but enough of a sample size to know that they're not keeping up with the rest of the pace, and particularly not what they were projected to keep up with. So, but Dan's own Gary Sanchez, not having a great year so far. Josh Donaldson, Mookie Betts, Roned Odor, Yoenis Cespedes, and finally my boy Starling Marte, who will be back from suspension around the 1st of July. So that's something to keep an eye out for. A guy was on suspension. You don't know what he's going to do, but he hadn't had a chance to do anything because he's been on suspension. So he's going to be back in probably 1st of July anyway, about three to 4 weeks. So, but anyway, those guys I named, Dan, and I know you've been keeping an eye on Gary Sanchez. Not quite the season so far, not quite living up to that billing.
No, I mean, he came on last year and kind of stole the thunder, kind of helped propel the Yankees down the stretch, hitting bomb after bomb. And he dealt with some injuries, in the beginning of the year. So hopefully he starts to right the ship. But, as our podcast listeners know, I'm not high on the Yankees. So, I'm not completely sold on him as one of those candidates. I got to see something from him. But I'll tell you what, and Brandon, I know you're not going to like this too much, but the number one guy on my list is Mr. Evan Gattis, who our own Brandon Reed dropped in our fantasy league. And as soon as I saw that, I was like a kid on Christmas. And there's a couple of reasons for it. And
he was only playing 1 out of every 4 games. I mean, I'm new at this.
He does play a little sparingly, but here's the thing. Last year he hit 32 home runs. 27 of them came after June 15th. The guy heats up later parts of the summer into the fall. So
that's numbers I would have no clue about. My lord. You're telling me I screwed up. You're telling me I screwed up.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but 4 hours after you dropped him, I picked him up. So.
I did, but that's why I'm so scared to death to make any moves. To be honest with you, that's crazy. Seriously.
So he was number one on my list, and I had to bring that up just so we can rib Brandon a little bit of it. Hopefully heats up. And now he's not even having a terrible, he's hitting over 300, but he only has those 4 home runs. So I expect the power production to pick up in the later parts of the summer.
And I think I even asked your opinion and advice on Evan Gattis early in the season. And so now that I'm looking back at this was a ploy, because I think you kind of played it off. I think you did.
I think I gave him a glowing endorsement saying that, they did it. I mean, they did add Brian McCann and Carlos Beltran. Those are the 2 guys of why he's inconsistent in the lineup. But, AJ Hinch does a good job of trying to get him in there and work it out. But, yeah, I mean, he's not going to play every day. So, for me, it works out because I still have Gary Sanchez, so I can kind of swap them back and forth and play the hot hand if they're both playing one day, or if Gattis is out, then I have Sanchez to step in. So, if you're an owner of Gattis, it's definitely been a little frustrating if he's your only catcher on your team. But if you pair him with somebody else, it might work out. Another guy that I had on my list too that I actually own in a couple leagues is Dansby Swanson, the young rookie shortstop for the Braves. He's had a pretty rough start to say the least. He's batting under 200, but his power is starting to pick up. He hit a 3-run jack last night that I watched. Beautiful swing. It's just one of those things that's a developmental thing. This is first year up in the big leagues, right out of spring training. So you got to give him some time, and he's starting to figure it out. He's hit a couple home runs this past week. So I expect that batting average to creep up over that 200 mark, maybe get to 220 to 250 by the end of the year, but he's going to have some power behind that bat as well. He's a guy that you can buy for basically pennies. He's probably on your waiver wire, but if he's on a team and he's staying on my team the whole time, definitely make a play for him.
There you go. Walter McMichael, low buy for the rest of the season. We'll see how it all plays out. We're still pretty early. We're not even really halfway through the season, are we, Dan? We're probably what are you, about 50, 55 games played for most teams?
Yep. Yeah, I'd say that's right.
So we still got way over 100 to go. So not even at the halfway, but never too early to start talking about it. And I learned that I screwed up by releasing Evan Gaddis. But anyway, I think Dan fleeced me. He fooled me a little bit there. Trickery by Dan Shaw. Yeah, Evan Gaddis, man. I don't know. He only plays like once every couple of weeks.
You should go back and reread my message to you because it was a pretty fond endorsement. I can't help your managerial skills in fantasy baseball.
I lost patience. I mean, and the guy only plays one out of every 4 or 5 games. I mean, and I'm thinking that's going to be the trend for the rest of the season, So I don't know. I'm still learning this. So
hey, you have an impressive 6-3 record. I got to give you props. I didn't think that would be the case.
I do, and I've been hit with injury bug quite a bit. And I'll be honest with you, I am scared of making moves. I'm scared of dropping guys because because it is a long season, and I just don't know how it is all going to pan out, and I don't keep up with it day to day enough to know the trends and what's going on with inside the teams to really know whether or not this is just a bad stretch for my guy or not. But I think I did fairly well in the draft. I think I drafted a fairly good team. One of them got suspended. He'll be back soon. And Manny Machado's not really doing exactly what I thought he would either. So Giancarlo Stanton, those guys aren't beasting out like I thought they would. But anyway, we'll continue this next week. More fantasy baseball talk for you. I promise you. Now it's time to talk about what is going on that website, myfantasysportstalk.com. A couple of things I wrote down. We talked about it earlier. Colin Kaepernick, Dan's great piece on Colin Kaepernick, out with that incredible stat. 143 other quarterbacks have got jobs after that. So, but anyway. And then, of course, Dan's. I forgot to mention this earlier in the show. I wanted to bring this up, but this was a crazy story, Dan, about your spring cleaning article. Tell the folks about that at home.
Yeah. Just stumbling across the newswire. There's a guy in Tennessee cleaning out his 90-year-old aunt's attic, and he stumbled across a whole set of unopened 1940s to 1950s baseball cards, in total over $1 million worth of findings, which kind of makes me, I hate cleaning, but it kind of makes me want to go to my elderly grandparents' house and rummage through their attic to see if they have anything.
Does that remind you of the Seinfeld episode? You remember this one, Dan, where they took the old guy's records?
Oh yeah. And they had he had his lovely assistant, who I think ended up putting oil on George's head. Yes, that was a good one.
But the records were the crap, so you have every chance of striking out. But this guy didn't.
Yeah. No, that was a great story. Good for him, and it makes me just want to keep looking because I'm going to find that payday eventually. Baseball cards, football cards. Brandon Reed photos. Who knows?
Well, Dan, that makes me think. Do you have a collection of baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards?
Yeah, I have a very large collection. Most of it not worth anything, but I have a couple prized possession cards in there that will definitely stay with me for a while.
Yeah, same here. I was really heavily in collecting baseball cards. I think I started around, late 80s, early 90s. Of course, my favorite player was Jose Canseco. I've got all these cards still. I've probably got 3 pages of Jose Canseco cards. Love Bo Jackson, too. Kirby Puckett, if you remember Kirby Puckett. Love Kirby Puckett. So many of the A's, though, but I've got a ton of baseball, a little bit of basketball, a lot of Penny Hardaway cards, some really cool Penny Hardaway cards, and even some football cards just collected from back in the day, but still have them with me. The thing is, when you were collecting cards with the bubble gum, that's really the only reason you bought baseball cards back in the day in the 50s and 60s is they weren't mass produced like they were in the 80s and 90s, so they were worth a lot more back then if you held on to them than they are now, but I'm still holding on to them for that hope. But read that article on the website right now. Really cool story about a guy from Tennessee But that, Orlando's keeping up with the NBA playoffs. You have that to look forward to if you care about the NBA playoffs. I can already tell you what's happening. The Warriors are dominating, but Orlando's writing about it. So check that out on the website. And Dan, I just want to give a shout out to our entertainment writers. A few folks I want to mention. They do such a great job every single day on the entertainment side, which a lot of people forget about. And My Fantasy Sports Talk is not just sports talk. It's entertainment in all varieties, concert reviews, movie reviews, show reviews, everything like that. So a few folks I want to give a shout out to real quick is Jamie Nixon, Sarah Bartz, Kara McCall, and Connor Cunningham. Those folks have been holding it down on the entertainment side and doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And two of those, Jamie and Kira, both won Contributor of the Month for May. Kira's been great, not only writing her articles, but coming on as an editor and publishing a lot of the pieces. So she's definitely been kind of an MVP of that entertainment section. Sarah Bartz is always bringing out new content, and Jamie Nixon, who's been with us for a while. But lately, her articles covering a lot of Discovery Channel shows. Cooper's Treasure. She just brought out a new one about some gold mine thing. I'm sorry, it escapes me. But they've actually been blowing up. Her Cooper's Treasure piece. I don't know what's happening, but I mean, it's when I named her Contributor of the Month, her piece was at. Her series of pieces were at 12 to 15,000 views, and just in the last week, and you're talking a month-old article, it's shot up over 20,000. So it must be the number one hit on Google, because it's coming in daily with a ton of views, and she did a great job with it. So definitely check it out if you're a fan of the show.
And who is the young lady who is actually she's like traveling around covering concerts and bands?
Yeah, April Dalliman, I believe, is how you pronounce her last name. I don't know how she does it, but she scores interviews with like a lot of these band people and actual legitimate, famous bands. Her last one I think was U2 and somebody else with it. So she's done a great job, and she gets meet and greets and does a great job covering them for My Fantasy Sports Talks. I mean, she's going there because she likes the bands, but she's also going there with the intent to interview and cover the actual acts themselves, which has been fantastic.
Yep, no doubt. Very impressive stuff. So it's not just, a fluffy piece about a band. She is actually traveling, interviewing, and it's very in-depth pieces. So not just sports, it's entertainment as well. So we hope to entertain you June 22nd for our live NBA draft show. Dan, can't wait. That's the next big thing coming up very soon.
Yeah, and I'm definitely getting ready for it, studying up on all the prospects, so we can kind of tell you exactly what type of player your team is drafting, and we'll be with you from the first pick all the way to the 60th pick. And you want to stay with us because you know who that 60th pick was one year, Isaiah Thomas, the small one, the smaller one. So stay with us because you're going to find some hidden gems in that second round, and I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
That's right. Coming up very soon, June 22nd, the NBA draft. We can't look forward to it. We also can't wait to look forward to another show next week. And coming up, so we're going to ramp up that NBA draft prep since the playoffs will be over by that time. I can guarantee you that. By next time we come to you with another podcast, these playoffs will be over. So don't forget, we will be live for that NBA draft show, My Fantasy Podcast. So subscribe to our YouTube page. The link to the live draft show is already up with the countdown and the ticker showing you exactly when we start our show. So check that out, and you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page and follow that right now. We're also going to bring you, of course, more fantasy baseball talk because apparently that's what the folks want to know about. So we'll discuss. We'll talk about the rest of the news in the world of sports and the NFL, all that. And, of course, we're going to answer your fantasy mailbag questions. So appreciate you guys for keep on submitting them. You keep on asking great questions that we have 2-hour debates on, even if it is just me and Dan. No Orlando, no Ryan Thomas, no Dylan Davis Trotto, no Michael Gomez, no all these guys from My Fantasy Sports Talk that you know and love. Just me and Dan. So you just got to love us this week. Maybe next week it'll be more. So, but keep the questions coming. We appreciate it. Don't forget to spread the word that we can be found on YouTube. We can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, SPN the Sports Podcasting Network, WBLZSports.com. And of course, as always, check out the website daily, MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Why go anywhere else for sports and entertainment? Why? That's the question. Makes no sense. Anyway, for Dan Chalk, I am Brandon Reed. We will see you next time. Later.